I never thought I'd be the guy writing to a Reddit relationship advice thread about something so painfully personal, but here I am. It all started with what I thought was my perfect wedding, a day I'd dreamed of for years. My fiancée, Lisa, was beautiful, long blonde hair, bright blue eyes, that radiant smile that made everyone around her feel special. We met in college, fallen hard, and I'd always believed I'd found my forever. She seemed perfect, sweet, caring, funny until that day. The morning of our honeymoon, I woke up still buzzing from the wedding celebration. Guests had gone home, and we were alone in that cozy beachfront hotel room. I reached for my phone, still half in a daze, and decided to check my messages. I'd always been a little paranoid about her phone, nothing specific, just a gut feeling that someone could hurt us, that I needed to stay vigilant. That morning, though, I saw it. There was a message thread, and what I saw made my stomach drop so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The first message was casual, but the next one, it was a confession. From her to my best friend, Mike. I can't stop thinking about last night, she wrote. Last night was perfect. I wish you were here. I stared at those words in disbelief. It was as if someone had punched me in the gut. My hands went numb and I felt my face flush hot with anger and shock. How could she do this? Right before our wedding, on our honeymoon, I didn't even need to read more. The betrayal was crystal clear. I closed the phone, feeling my palms sweat and my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. I didn't wake her up immediately. Part of me just wanted to sit there and process, but another part knew I couldn't let this slide. I had to confront her face to face. I got up, trying to steady my shaking hands. The room was silent except for the muffled sound of waves outside. I looked at her sleeping face, her peaceful expression, the way her hair fanned out over the pillow, and my stomach twisted. I knew I had to be calm. I didn't want to wake her with accusations. I just needed to see her wake up. But the moment she opened her eyes and saw my expression, cold, furious, betrayed, her face changed. She looked confused at first, then the panic set in. "What's wrong?" she asked softly, voice trembling. I looked her straight in the eyes, feeling every muscle in my body tense. "Did you cheat on me?" I asked, my voice low but steady. I saw her eyes flicker, that guilty flicker, and for a second I wondered if she would even deny it. But then she looked away, silent. That was enough. My stomach clenched and I felt my fists clench involuntarily. Every instinct told me to scream, to throw something, to make her feel the pain she just caused me. But I stayed quiet, just staring at her, feeling the betrayal seep into my bones. That day, I knew I'd be plotting my revenge. I didn't say a word right then. I just packed a bag, slipped out of the room, and tried to keep my composure. But inside, I was boiling. That was just the beginning. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how many red flags I'd ignored. She'd always been a little secretive about her phone, nervously hiding it when I came close. She'd cancel plans last minute, saying she was too busy, but now I saw the real reason. My mind raced, trying to figure out how deep this went. I spent the next few hours pretending everything was fine, but my mind was spinning. I had to come up with a plan, one that would hit her where it hurt, but also leave her knowing I wasn't some naive fool. I'd been a good husband, a loyal guy. Now I had to show her what betrayal truly meant. I knew I wasn't going to let her get away with this, not without giving her a taste of her own medicine. But first, I needed proof. I couldn't go back empty-handed, trusting just a few texts. I had to find her other secret messages, her phone, her email, whatever it took. I remembered her laptop was still in the hotel room, and I made up my mind. I was going to uncover everything. I felt my pulse quicken as I grabbed her belongings and headed out, leaving the room with a calm exterior but a storm brewing inside. What I didn't tell anyone yet was that I already knew how I was going to make her regret this. I just needed time to plan it out, something cruel but precise, something she wouldn't forget. I stepped into the hallway, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on me. I was hurt, yes, but more than that, I was furious. She crossed a line, and I was going to make sure she paid. And that's the part I'm still working through. I don't know if I'll tell her I found the text right away or if I'll surprise her later. But one thing's clear, this is far from over. I spent the rest of that day trying to keep my cool, but inside I was a mess. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lisa's face, Her innocent smile, her smooth skin, that look she gave me when she thought she was fooling everyone. I knew better now. I knew what she was capable of. Her betrayal wasn't just a slip-up. It was a mark of a person who didn't care about vows, about trust, about anything I believed in. I did what anyone would do. I started digging. First step, I grabbed her phone, which was still in her bag. I kept my hands steady as I unlocked it, trying to ignore the pounding in my chest. Her messages, her social media, her email, all of it was there. I scrolled through her texts, trying to find more evidence, some pattern, a trail I could follow. And there it was, more messages, more signs that this wasn't a one-time thing. She'd been hiding this for weeks, maybe longer. While I was scrolling, my mind kept racing. I knew I had to be careful. If I played this wrong, she'd destroy everything faster than I could blink. I needed to plan my next move, quietly and smartly. But part of me, the angry part, just wanted to confront her right then and there. The temptation to scream at her, to shake her and make her admit everything was strong. My fists clenched, and I felt a hot flush in my cheeks. I looked around the hotel room, trying to decide what to do next. My eyes landed on her laptop. It was sitting on the desk, open, waiting for me. I hesitated for a second, then, knowing I couldn't let this go, I sat down and started going through her emails. I found flights, hotel reservations, evidence that she'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months. The more I uncovered, the more I wanted to throw everything in her face. But I had to be smart. I knew women like her, manipulative, sneaky. She probably kept backup plans, secret accounts, hidden messages. I had to be thorough. I copied everything onto a flash drive, making sure I'd have proof I could use when the time came. As I worked, my stomach kept twisting and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. Every nerve in my body was alive, alert, ready for war. Once I had everything, I leaned back in the chair, exhausted but determined. I looked at her sleeping figure, lying there oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I quietly whispered to myself, "This isn't over, not by a long shot." I knew I'd have to be patient, subtle, maybe even cold. She'd think she was clever, playing her game, but I was already 2 steps ahead. My plan was simple. I'd gather all the evidence, confront her at the right moment, and do it in a way that would leave her no room for denial. I wanted her to see I was serious, serious enough to walk away, to destroy her if necessary. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, just as I was feeling it now. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that guilty look she gave me when I caught her texting Mike. I replayed the scene in my head, the way her voice trembled, her eyes darting away. I hated it. I hated her. I hated myself for trusting her so blindly. More than anything, I wanted her to pay. I knew I had to act carefully. Tomorrow, I'd confront her. Not just with words, but with everything I'd found. I'd make her understand that betrayal has a cost. She thought she was clever, slipping behind my back, but I was about to make her regret every stolen moment, every lie. My fingers curled into fists again as I sat there in the dark. I felt a cold resolve settling over me. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming what was mine. I didn't expect her to beg for forgiveness. I didn't expect tears. I just wanted her to feel the same pain I was feeling right now, amplified 100 times, and I knew somehow I was ready for whatever came next. I just had to wait for the right moment. Patience was the key now. I took a deep breath, let it out slow, and prepared to turn the page on this nightmare. The next step was clear. I'd confront her face to face with everything laid bare. And then I'd decide what came after. The silence in the room was deafening, but beneath it I could hear my own heartbeat, steady, relentless. I was done pretending. I was done trusting. The game was on, and I was about to make my move. The next morning I woke up early, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My muscles ached from the tension of the previous night, and my mind was foggy with adrenaline. I couldn't sit still. The evidence I'd gathered, the texts, the emails, the flights, everything confirmed what I already knew. She'd been lying to me for weeks, maybe longer. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to breathe evenly. My palms still felt slick with sweat, and my stomach was knotting up again. I didn't want to rush into anything reckless, but I also knew I couldn't wait. I had to face her, get it over with. The idea of her waking up innocent, unaware of what I'd discovered, made me almost sick. I heard her stir in the other room. She was waking up, probably wondering why I was so tense. I took a deep breath and decided it was time. No more hiding, no more pretending. I grabbed her phone, already unlocked from last night, and slipped out of the room quietly. I didn't want to wake her just yet. I moved into the bathroom where I could be alone for a moment. I pulled out the flash drive with all the evidence, double-checked that it was secure, then grabbed her laptop. I needed her to see what I'd found. This wasn't about shouting or yelling. This was about making her understand she'd crossed a line, one she'd never come back from. When she stepped into the bathroom, I was already waiting there, hands trembling slightly. "Morning," I said, voice flat. "We need to talk." Her face went pale. I could see her eyes darting around, trying to figure out what I knew. "What's going on?" she asked, voice trembling. I held up her phone. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" I asked sharply. Her eyes widened and her knees seemed to wobble for a second. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. "Don't play dumb," I snapped. "I saw the messages. You cheated on me, Lisa, with Mike. Right before our wedding, on our honeymoon, you're sitting there pretending to be innocent." Her face betrayed a mix of guilt and panic. "It's not what you think," she stammered. "It was just a mistake." I was confused. "Save it," I cut her off. "I've got everything, proof of your flights, your plans, your lies. You've been lying to me for weeks. Do you even realize what you've done?" My voice cracked slightly, but I pushed through. She looked like she was about to cry, but I wasn't going to let her guilt shame me. This was her moment of truth. "You think I'm going to forgive that, after everything, after the vows we took?" I was furious, but I kept my voice cold. "You're lucky I don't throw you out right now." She stared at me, tears welling in her eyes. "Please," she begged softly. "I swear it was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen. I love you." I scoffed. "Love? You lied to me, betrayed me, and now you're crying. That's rich." "No, Lisa, this isn't about love. It's about respect. And you've shown you don't respect me at all." I took a step closer, my fists clenched. "You're going to pack your things. You're leaving today and don't come back." Her shoulders shook as she tried to compose herself. "Can we at least talk?" she whispered, voice trembling. "No," I said firmly. "There's nothing left to say. You made your choice." I handed her the flash drive. "Here's everything. Take it. Take your lies, your plans, and your betrayal. I want you out of my life." She looked at the drive, then at me, eyes filled with a mixture of regret and defiance. "You'll regret this," she muttered. I didn't bother replying. I just turned and walked out. My skin was crawling, but I felt a strange sense of relief, too. The truth was finally out. She had nothing to hide anymore. I went back to the hotel room, packed a bag, and called a friend to help me find a new place to stay. I needed distance, clarity. As I left that hotel behind, the cool morning air hit my face, a harsh reminder that life was about to change forever. Now that she knew I was onto her, I knew I had to prepare for what came next. She might try to manipulate or guilt me, but I was done playing her game. My plan was waiting in the wings, careful, calculated, and brutal in its own quiet way. The question was, how far was she willing to go to keep her secret? And what was I willing to do to make her pay? I had the evidence, I had the power, and I was ready to strike back. After I handed her the drive and told her to leave, I felt like I was walking through a fog. My mind was racing, but my body was numb. I watched her gather her things with trembling hands, her face streaked with tears. She didn't bother arguing anymore. She just packed in silence, like she knew she'd lost control. I didn't say a word, just watched her stumble through the apartment, feeling the weight of everything she'd taken from me. When she finally left, I stood in the doorway and watched her get into her car. She looked back once, eyes red and pleading, but I didn't flinch. I closed the door behind her, hearing the click echoing louder than I expected. That sound marked the end of a chapter I'd never thought would close this way. I dropped onto the sofa, exhausted and furious all at once. I knew I had to act fast. I wasn't about to let her walk away and pretend it never happened. My plan was simple but effective. I'd send the evidence to her family, her friends, anyone I thought might have influence, show them the truth about the woman they thought they knew. I wanted her to lose her support system, her reputation, everything that made her feel secure. First thing I did was find her social media accounts. I knew she'd try to delete things, but I was prepared. I screenshot everything, texts, emails, reservations, and uploaded them to a secure folder. Then I crafted a message, short and cold. I didn't want to give her a chance to spin anything. Here's the truth. I typed, "You betrayed me and everyone who trusted you. Consider this your final wake-up call." I attached the evidence, then hit send to her closest friends and family. I didn't bother explaining, they'd see it for themselves. Once the message was sent, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. I'd done what I could, but I knew the fallout was just beginning. I could already imagine the gossip, the whispers. I had to brace myself for the storm, knowing that after this, she'd probably come back trying to manipulate her way out of it. That night, I laid on the bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. The betrayal hit me like a punch in the gut, but what haunted me more was the realization that I'd almost believed in something that was never real, that I'd trusted someone so deeply, only to find she was capable of this level of deception. I told myself I'd be stronger. I'd rebuild somehow, but I also knew I had to be cautious. Revenge in this situation wasn't just about hurting her, it was about protecting myself from her lies and games. I had to stay alert. The next day I started making arrangements. I found a new apartment, one that was far from her reach. I called a lawyer to get advice on my options. I didn't want to drag things out in court, but I knew I needed some legal protection, especially if she tried to come back and cause trouble. In the meantime, I blocked her number, her social media, every way she could reach me. I didn't want to hear her voice, see her face. I needed space to think without her constant presence trying to pull me back in. I even changed my number. Throughout all this, I kept feeling a strange sense of clarity. Yeah, I was hurt. Yeah, I was pissed off. But I also knew I was finally free. Free from her lies, her manipulation, her betrayal. The weight I'd been carrying for weeks was lifting, replaced by a cold resolve. I knew this wasn't over, but I also knew I was done being passive. I'd taken what steps I could to reclaim my life. I'd shown her I wasn't going to be a doormat, that I could walk away from her unbroken. Not everyone would understand what I was doing, and maybe some would judge me for how harsh I was being. But honestly, I didn't give a damn. She'd pushed me to the edge, and I was finally fighting back on my terms with my rules. As I sat in my new place that evening, feeling the quiet of my apartment settle around me, I realized I'd crossed a line myself. No more secrets, no more lies. I'd already taken the biggest step, confronting her, exposing her. From here, I'd focus on healing, rebuilding what I'd lost, and never doubting my instincts again. That's what I kept telling myself. And as I looked out the window at the dark city skyline, I knew one thing for sure. I was done letting her control my life. Now, I was in charge. A few days after I sent everything out and officially cut ties, I felt a strange calm settle over me. It was as if I'd finally exhaled after holding my breath for too long. But underneath that calm was a storm of emotions: anger, betrayal, a dull ache of loss. Still, I knew I'd done what I had to do. I'd taken control back, even if it hurt like hell. That morning I woke up with a plan. I wasn't just going to sit and wait for the fallout, I was going to face it head on. I decided to call her once more, just to get it over with, to hear her voice and to finally put things to rest. I dialed her number, expecting her to ignore it or hang up, but she picked up after the third ring. "Hello," she said, her voice trembling. "Hey," I said, voice cold but steady. "I just wanted to talk, or at least hear your side." There was a long pause on the line. Then she whispered, "What do you want?" "I want you to know this isn't over," I told her. "You lied, you cheated, and you tried to hide it, but I found out everything. So don't come back pretending you're innocent. If you think I'm going to forgive or forget, you've got another thing coming." She started crying then, her voice breaking. "Please, I'm sorry. I didn't want it to come out like this. I love you. I made a mistake, but I want us to fix this." I scoffed. "Love, no. Lisa, love isn't hiding your phone, sneaking around and lying. Love isn't betrayal. You lost that the moment you decided to cheat. Don't call me again. I don't want to hear your lies anymore." I ended the call and sat back, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I'd done what I could. Now I just had to wait and see what she'd do. But I knew deep down she wouldn't go quietly. She was the type to try and manipulate her way back into my life. Sure enough, a few hours later, I received a message from an unknown number. It was her, trying to guilt me, begging, pleading, promising to change. I didn't even bother reading it. I blocked that number immediately. Later that day, I met with my lawyer. We discussed the legal steps I could take to protect myself further. The idea of a restraining order came up and I considered it. I wanted her to stay away, not just physically, but emotionally. I couldn't have her worming her way back into my life with false promises. While all this was happening, I started focusing on myself. I signed up for new hobbies, working out, reading, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected. I knew healing wouldn't be immediate, but I was determined to rebuild my sense of self. I'd been betrayed, yes, but I refused to let her steal my strength. One evening, I sat in my new apartment, staring at the wall. The pain still lingered, but it was different now. I was beginning to detach, to see myself beyond the betrayal. I realized I'd been clinging to a version of the relationship that was never real. That recognition made me feel both bitter and liberated. In the quiet of that night, I made a decision. I was going to be done with her for good. I wasn't going to keep waiting for her to manipulate her way back. No, I needed to cut the strings entirely. I took the key to my old apartment where she still held some of her things and I drove there. I placed her belongings in a box, grabbed the key, and on my way to the dumpster, I paused. I looked at the box, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief. With a deep breath, I tossed it in the trash. That was the last piece of her I'd hold on to. That simple act cemented my new beginning. I felt lighter, freer. I'd faced her, exposed her, and now I was ready to move past it. It was time to rebuild better, stronger, wiser. I knew the pain would fade, replaced by the lessons I'd learned. Looking back now, I realize that betrayal isn't just about the other person hurting you, it's about how you choose to respond. I could have let her destroy me, but instead I took control. I faced the truth, acted swiftly, and refused to be a victim. That's the key lesson I want to share. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply walking away and rebuilding. No grand gestures, no drama, just a quiet, firm decision to take your life back. And that, I believe, is the most powerful thing you can do after being betrayed. Weeks passed since I handed her the keys, watched her leave, and made the decision to start over. At first, the ache of betrayal lingered. Every moment felt tinged with a dull, persistent pain. But with each day, that pain softened, replaced by a strange clarity I hadn't felt in years. I was finally free from the chaos, the lies, the betrayal. It was like breathing anew after drowning for so long. I kept busy, throwing myself into my work, exercising, reconnecting with friends who had always been there. My apartment felt different, less heavy, more like a safe space I could finally own. I often caught myself staring at the door, wondering how long it would take for her to try to worm her way back, but I refused to entertain that thought. I'd done enough. I'd handled everything the way I needed to, quietly, decisively, and without hesitation. One afternoon, I took a deep breath, sat down at my desk, and started drafting a simple letter. Not one meant to hurt her, but one that clearly laid out what I'd learned, what I'd done, and what I was moving towards. I needed closure, not just for myself, but to reinforce my boundaries. I finished it, printed it, then sealed it in an envelope. I walked to the mailbox, feeling a strange sense of finality. I dropped the letter inside, knowing I wouldn't look back. From now on, she was a closed chapter. Whatever she wanted to say or do, it was her choice. I had nothing more to prove or justify. Looking back, I realized that the hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the moment of certainty afterward. That moment I decided I wouldn't tolerate her lies anymore, that I'd take my life back in my hands. That decision changed everything. I'd stopped being a victim and started being someone who could stand tall again. Now I focus on my future. I found a new job, a new apartment, and a new sense of self. I'm not naive. I know wounds take time to heal and scars never disappear completely. But I also know I'm stronger than I thought. I've learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't grand gestures or revenge at all. It's moving on, unbothered, and refusing to let someone's betrayal define you. Every day I remind myself of that. I look in the mirror, see a person who survived the worst and still stands. I don't dwell on what was lost. I focus on what I've gained: clarity, resilience, and a renewed sense of trust in myself. So to anyone out there dealing with betrayal, they may think they've lost everything, but in truth, they're just on the brink of rediscovering themselves. The pain is real, but so is the power to walk away and start over. It's not easy, but it's necessary. And in the end, it's the only way to truly reclaim your life.